Everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today we're going to take a look at the new DC Collectibles New 52 Lex Luthor Deluxe action figure. This new figure comes packaged in your standard DC Collectibles type box packaging with the window in the front so the figure's clearly displayed. You've got the white borders, and for this particular character we have purple mixed in with the white. And then you've got the name of the character down below. On the one side you have the darkened in image of the character, and then on the other side you have an actual image of the figure. It tells us the figure stands approximately 8.5 inches high, and that the figure is based on designs by Tony Daniel and was sculpted by Joe Mina. Then finally on the back we have a little brief bio with a little thumbnail image of the figure up at the top. And then we have a look at the one of the box sets that was released a few months ago, the one with the Catwoman figure in it. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now this figure is based on, I guess, the first armor that Lex Luthor wore in the New 52 comics, in the Superman comics, I guess. This is not actually the armor that he's currently wearing in like the pages of the Justice League and the Forever Evil limited series that recently came out. This is a much bigger, bulkier armor. It has a helmet and wings. It makes for a cool action figure. I've got to say that for the most part I prefer the more slimmed down design that we're seeing currently, like in the pages of Justice League. It's got like the traditional kind of Lex Luthor emblem on his chest that we've seen with past armors and stuff. I kind of like that version better, and kind of wish that that was what we got in the figure form. But still, this is a pretty cool action figure in its own right. Again, it's a deluxe figure, so it is a larger scale figure than the normal 7-inch figures. Here he is standing next to Bizarro, and you can see he's much taller than Bizarro, basically. And this figure is going to cost you probably in the neighborhood of $40 to $50. My comic shop was selling it for $50, but I've seen it for online at places like Big Bad Toy Store for $40. So, you know, you're going to have to plop down some money for this one because it is a bigger scale figure. Now, the helmet is removable, which is nice. So you've got Lex Luthor's head underneath the helmet. Now, he's got kind of like a smirk on his face. So I don't know if I really like the overall expression on his face, but I do like that you can actually remove the helmet. Now you've got still like pieces of the armor that you can see on the back of his skull, and then the armor kind of encompasses the head. But you can turn the head, and we'll go over more of that when we look at the articulation. The other accessory that the figure has is it has a removable jetpack. So you can see here that it has this detachable hose that goes in the forearm. Now, at least on my figure, the hose does not stay attached very well. It fits basically very loosely in that hole, so it pops out a lot when you're moving it around and everything. It's not too big a deal, and I don't know if that's going to be the same way on all the figures, but with mine it just does not stick in that hole very good. But the backpack itself, the jetpack, is removable. It's just got a little clip that sticks on the top, and then it's got a peg hole, and with a little peg on the back of the jetpack that fits in there. So you can also have the figure displayed without the helmet and without the jetpack. So on the packaging, as I said before, it says the figure stands at 8.5 inches high, but if you actually count to the very top of his armor, it's really closer to 9 inches. If you just counted to the top of his head, it would be about 8.5, but to the actual tip of his armor, which extends a little bit over his head, the figure really stands almost 9 inches high. Overall sculpting and paint apps on this figure are pretty nice. For the greens, it's basically kind of a metallic green, and there's some neon greens kind of mixed in throughout, and then he's got the purple, which is kind of a flat purple for like the skin part of the suit. But the armor pieces are a greenish metallic paint. And so for the most part, it's got some pretty nice detail, and you've got some nicks and battle marks and stuff along the armor to give it a kind of a wear look, which is nice. And then he's got the rubber hoses. He's got the one rubber hose on the jetpack that I told you was detachable, and then he's got this other rubber hose on his other arm, which is not removable. And you probably want to be careful when you're moving the arm around. I haven't had any problems, but I could see how you could easily pull this hose out if you pulled too hard. Articulation on this figure is actually pretty good, especially for a larger scale figure. Now the head is, you can basically just look left and right. It doesn't really have any up or down movement, but he can look left and right. Well, maybe a little teeny bit of down movement, but not really. Then the arms are your standard, attached at the shoulder with your standard ball hinge joint. He's got these armor pieces which are articulated. They move up and down with the arm, and you can actually pop them off if you want to. So that doesn't really prohibit the movement of the arm too much. He's got the swivel there at the shoulder, and then he's got the bicep swivel. He's got a single hinge knee. He doesn't really get very good bending at the, or not at the knee, at the elbow, and he doesn't really get very good bending at the elbow because of the way the armor is sculpted. But he does have a rotation. Actually, no, he doesn't have rotation at the elbow. He's just got the single hinged at the elbow, and it again really can't bend too well at the elbow. And then he does have, looks like he has a little bit of up and down movement with the wrist, and he has the swivel at the wrist. And this one hand is sculpted, his left hand is sculpted open, and then his right hand is sculpted closed-fisted. And again, as I mentioned, he's got the hose on the right arm, and it really doesn't prohibit too much the movement of the arm. So, but I would just recommend being careful and not pulling on that hose too much, because you could rip it out. He does have an ab crunch in the midsection, which is actually pretty nice, and he's actually got pretty good rotation. It can move, and he can kind of rock it, and he's got pretty good down and back movement there. So that's pretty nice, again, especially for a large scale figure. He does not have waist. He does not have any kind of waist swivel or anything. And then he's got the ball joints at the legs, and he can do the splits pretty good for, again, for a large scale figure. And you can get the leg forward pretty good and kind of out and back. So pretty good movement there in the leg. No thigh swivel. He's got the double or single jointed knee, and he can bend his knee about that much. So better than the elbow, but not great bending at the knee. And then he does have a hinge at the ankles, so he's got up and down movement, but no swivel, unfortunately, at the ankles, and no pivot. So that's my review. Overall, I think the figure itself is a very solid figure. Pretty good articulation, especially for a large-scale figure. Nice paint apps, nice detail. Overall, a very nice figure. As I mentioned before, I think I would have preferred that they have done the figure. My only real complaint is the choice of actual armor that they based the figure on. I would have preferred the smaller scale, basically regular size Lex Luthor with the armor that you see wearing in the Justice League comics. It would have been A, cheaper, since it would have been a regular size figure, and B, I think would have just kind of fit in a little bit better with your other figures. But again, this seems to be very accurate to that first armor that he was wearing, I think, in some of the earlier Superman comics. I haven't really read any of the stories with this actual armor, but from the pictures I've seen, it looks to be pretty accurate. It was definitely a larger scale, bulkier armor, I guess, so he could fight Superman. And so, the figure itself, based on the armor that they chose, is very nice. I just kind of wish they had chosen, and maybe at a later date they will, to do a figure based on the armor that he's wearing in the Justice League comics right now. So that's my review. This figure is hitting comic and specialty shops now, so if you want to pick it up, you can start looking for it now. And until next time, I'll check you later.